Okay, so our title of our webinar today is Understanding Patents and How They Benefit Your Business. And it's really essentially protecting your business idea and your products that you have. So this is our agenda for today. I'm just going to do a quick introduction of the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Center, which I just call the Innovation Center. We're going to go through the main IPs. So IP is intellectual property. That's what IP stands for. And under that umbrella, there are ways to protect your ideas, and patents are typically the most known IP. So a lot of people talk about patents when really they're talking maybe about trademarks and copyrights. So we're just going to go through the main 5 of them that we have. And then also part of this webinar is at the end, we will use that spin wheel to see who will win the $75 gift card. And it's from a vendor of your choice, which is, I think, a pretty cool thing to do. So part of the introduction here is the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Center is located in Thunder Bay, but we do have a satellite office in Kenora. Our region that we support is from Manitoba border all the way to 𝗪𝗵𝘁 and all up north. So if you're located in any of that region, you can come to us for advisory support, business support. We typically support companies that are innovative, or they have some sort of innovation a part of their business, or they're manufacturing a product here in our region. Go to the next slide here. So these are just a breakdown of the four IPs that we are going to go over. The first one's patent, which is probably the most commonly known IP. It covers new and useful ideas. So it's basically if you have an invention, something that no one else is doing, it would fall under the patent. Trademarks or anything that is unique. So combination of words, sounds, shapes that you can say really makes your product different than the other. So basically, if you see something out in the public, you can recognize what brand that is just by the shape of maybe their product or the color of their vehicles. That's what trademark is. Copyright, this is more towards artists and people that are creating artistic work. This is where it protects your artistic work. So I will go a little bit deeper into the copyright as well, just because I feel like people on this webinar might benefit from that IP the most. And then there's also industrial design. And industrial design basically protects the aesthetics, like the look of the product. So it's nothing technical. It's just the appearance of the product. And a lot of these are combined used to protect 1 or 2 items as well. So you can have a copyright and an industrial design as part of your protection for one of your products. So you don't have to just choose one of them. Sometimes the strategy is people mix and combine a few of them just to better protect their ideas. So the first one we're going to go through is patents. So this is just a snapshot of it, pretty basic, just quick shot of what it is. So patents, they protect your complete technical part, like how it works, the function of it. So anything brand new, this is going to be protected under patents. So that's the eligibility. Like, how do you know if you have a patent? It has to be completely new. It has to be useful too. You can't just go and ask for things that have no use to be patent. Something like that might go under a different IP protection. And non-obvious. So there are some things that we just have a custom of using and doing for years and years and years. Because it's been done that way doesn't mean one day someone can come around and patent it. So nothing too obvious. It's only protected for 20 years. So what that means is after 20 years, there's public access to your idea. So people have the freedom to use your idea after 20 years. And the fees are pretty expensive for patent. It's the most expensive IP. So you really have to think about if your business or if whatever you're patenting, if it's really going to produce enough money for you in order to make this sense. So in 20 years, You know, can you recoup this amount of money that you're going to spend to pay for your idea to be patent? And this $8,000 to $10,000, that's just writing a draft. And then your patent agent would then have to go to the CIPO, the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, and argue your patent or your idea. If someone tries to argue and says, nope, that's too close to mine, your costs would go up a little bit more. So it could go anywhere from that, usually 8 to 10. Sometimes though, we've seen it go up to, you know, $15,000, which is a lot. And then there's a filing fee. And then every year you have to pay a maintenance fee, and that's done on a quarterly basis, but it usually adds up to about $1,000 a year. So if you're going to keep it for the full 20 years, that's $20,000 on top of, you know, another 10 grand to file it, get it all written. So that might be $30,000, $40,000. So you really have to think about that if you are going to be able to make that worth your while. And it does take some time to get this through the government. So CIPO is ran part of the government's part of 𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗪, that department. And with all government, it takes a while. So patents take about 3 to 5 years to give you the access for it. But in that time, you can use what's called like a patent pending, knowing that you will eventually have the rights to the patent. So you can start to acquire sales during that time. So just another description. A lot of times people tend to forget about this part of it, is that in order to get that patent approved is you have to specifically tell the government every single detail of your invention. So every aspect of it, every possibility of, you know, what your invention is. And that can be pretty risky. And I say that just, you know, you're responsible for protecting your patent. So what that means is that if someone starts to steal your idea, which is, we call it infringement as well, but if someone starts to steal your idea, it's up to you to go out and tell that person to stop using your idea. So it tends to be pretty hard, especially we're Northern Ontario. If someone in Toronto or, you know, in Vancouver is using our product or copying it, we would have to, you know, get on a flight, go to Vancouver, go to Toronto, go to their office, try to get the product off the shelf. So tends to be a big cost. And if it's a larger company, like a big corporation that's stealing your idea, it's pretty hard to fight someone like that. They have a lot of money, big, deep pockets. And then that initial cost that I showed you in the previous slide, that is just protecting in Canada, meaning that anyone in the United States could steal your idea and sell it in the United States. If you want to have your product sold in another country, you would have to then pay for it to be patented in that country as well. So that's just things to consider when you're thinking about patents. And I have some clients that gone the patent route because it's either that they are planning to eventually sell their idea, and the people that they want to sell to want it to be patented, and they want that protection. So I already kind of went over this. It has to be new, useful, non-obvious. So that's usually, you can figure that out by a quick Google search. And if you're inventing a new mug of some sort, it's a new coffee mug that you're doing, you might want to Google coffee mugs and maybe a little bit of a description to see if there's something out there. So there are some things that can never be patented, and they're usually, I like to think of it, if you cannot predict the next generation, or you aren't able to produce it the exact same over time and time again, usually that means that it's something that won't be able to be patented. So like any animal form, like higher life form, plants, they have now, there's a new area where you can get a plant patent as well, but it's done through a different organization. You cannot patent lightning, of course, computer programs, and there's a couple other ones, but here, typically I've not seen any of my clients wanting to patent any of this stuff anyways, but it's just good to know that there are some restrictions of things you cannot patent. And then what are what's the benefits of using it? So it does hopefully it does prevent people from copying your idea or replicating your product. Hopefully that is enough for people to back off, and usually it is, but there are still some bad players out there. So, you know, that is a bonus of having a patent, is that it is protected. If you feel that eventually you will be acquired, meaning that your business will be bought by a larger business, this will show that larger business that you are ahead of the game, you're protecting your idea, you get more investors that way, and then you can sell your business and you have something that has value to it. Because when you have patent, that creates a value. It's expensive for you upfront, but if that is your plan down the road, that is worth your while then to get a patent. And then you can also, if you chose to sell your patent, so say if I produce some really cool tire for the automobile industry, and I decide to approach Ford to buy my patent, or maybe a licensing agreement, and then, you know, they take care of all the manufacturing and I get a royalty of that. That's another way that patents tend to work well for people. So these are just a few of the ideas that shows value for your business. Now we're going to move on to trademarks. So trademarks are any word, phrases, symbols, scents even. So scents is a newer one that's probably been introduced in the last maybe 3 to 5 years. So if you think of things like crayons, when you open up a pack of Crayola crayons, it has a certain smell to it. Play-Doh has a certain smell to it. So that is even like perfumes, if you can think of, that's protected under trademark as an IP, as protection. So anything that is very distinctive in the competitive world. So can people recognize a brand? And if so, then that must mean that that has a trademark, or it's worthy of a trademark. So that's the eligibilities. If it has to be unique, you can't take the Nike swoosh and just use the Nike swoosh and put an NADF underneath that and you feel like you've changed it enough. No, you haven't. There's certain, you know, technical parts of that swoosh that they will look into to make sure that you're different enough. So trademarks are very unique because you can be renewed. If you prove that you are consistently using it and it's a brand that's being recognized within the community, you are able to renew it, and you can almost renew it indefinitely. So that makes it very worth your while to do something like a trademark. And it's not that expensive. It's $2,500. This is including typical legal fees. Now you can go and apply and submit a trademark on your own. Probably trademark's not that complicated, but maybe for the first one that I would suggest going through an agent or a lawyer. They will help you, and then maybe the next two or the next few after that, you can do it yourself. Trademarks are backed up right now. Usually it doesn't take this long, but currently they are on a 2 to 3 year base. However, the time that you file is technically, you could use that as your right. Like you're able to use your trademark at the time that you file. You might not necessarily been granted that trademark, but it will show on the CIPO's website that you are in the process of receiving the trademark. Trademarks are really important for branding. If you feel your business has a strong brand and you feel that people would purchase, if you're making soap, let's say you have a soap company and your soap has a really unique shape to it, that as soon as someone walks into a market or a store, they see your soap on the shelf, they know it's you. Then if that's what kind of business that you want, trademarks is probably something that you should look into. It's just something that really distinguishes your brand from the others in the market. And so here's just some examples of trademarks. And I'm sure everyone recognizes majority of these trademarks. And so that's why it's very valuable. If I was to, you know, Nike for sure, the top one there, people can recognize, people feel a certain way with brands. If I look at Starbucks and Tim Hortons, it's coffee. It's the same, basically the same product, but it's very differently priced. And there's a reason, because Starbucks has a different branding than Tim Hortons, and Starbucks branding allows them to pay that or charge that higher higher cost. So it's just really important. And as I see too, as social media and the web gets bigger and bigger, it's important to have a distinctful element to your business. If you want to, like, this isn't necessarily anything you have to do, but it is something that if this is what you want to do, you would have to do it within a year of exposing your brand. If you are behind that, that's okay. There's ways to argue that with the government as well. But just as a guideline is they, use it for less than a year. If you think this is the brand that you want to, I put some IP protection on it and a trademark on it, then I would go ahead and do that. Okay, so what are the benefits? It is how, like what I just talked about, it's how your customers will identify you compared to other businesses. That's a big thing. I'm sure all of us go and think about what we purchase and why we purchase the brands that we purchase, why we like certain even vehicles other than other vehicles, skidoos. I laugh because I said skidoo, but really it's machining or snowmobiling, because skidoo is a brand. So that they have done very well on their branding, that even we use it as a term. Same with Kleenex. It's actually tissue, but we just call it Kleenex. And there's some other products, but anyway, so branding is very important. And if anyone, what happens is that sometimes people try to be very close to your brand. So if we think of like Crocs shoes, you'll go to the dollar store and there'll be a bunch of knockoffs and whatnot. Crocs might be over that 20 years of their patent, but maybe they have a industrial design for it. But anyways, that is infringing on their idea or their design. It's confusing people. People think that it's Crocs just by the look of it. So that's interesting. So just to let you know, trademark, don't want to confuse people when they see similar branding. And then it increase your value as a business. If you can say that you have a brand and you have this many followers and people recognize you, that's very valuable in the business world as well. So copyrights. So it's original work. It's anything like literary, dramatic, music, artistic. And the eligibility, it has to be original. It has to be something that you actually created yourself. Sometimes that can get a little confusing. Sometimes people, you're influenced by different artists. I can think of music. Maybe you listen to a lot of music that influences you. It's just you have to have a distinct difference. There has to be things, there's ways to judge it, but it is the second that you create that art, it is yours. But if someone wants to argue it, if say you all of a sudden your music is now on the Apple iTunes list or on Spotify, then maybe someone is going to say, hey, that's very similar to mine. And then you go into a different conversation about that and you figure out if there's enough differences in either. So just want to protect yourself in knowing that if you are heavily influenced by another artist, is making sure that your art wouldn't confuse people, and they would be able to they'd be able to tell the difference between your art and the person that you're influenced by. The good thing about copyright, it has a very long length of protection. So it's protected right until the death of the person that is creating it, and then plus 70 years. So that's quite some time. So it can go to the estate. So if you think about someone that has art pieces that are still being circulated, or maybe they're in the museum, they put their copyright in their will and their estate takes that and earns money from that. Or maybe it's someone that has music on the downloads or still on the radio, and you can have that in your estate and you can still earn money after you are no longer here. So again, $500 to register, but that's through a lawyer. The copyright is not a very complicated application, so I do feel most people would be able to go through it by themselves. You can just go right onto CIPO, Canadian Intellectual Property Office website, and register right there. If you want someone to help you go through it, I wouldn't mind sitting there while you fill it out and just helping you go through that that process. It's a savings, quite a bit of savings, so I would suggest that you can do it by yourself, and it's very quick, so 1 to 2 weeks. So here's just another little snippet. So you are, again, protecting words, phrases, distinguishing yourself from other on the market. It is the legal right that protects your original work from being copied. So it's your right. No one else can copy it. And as like I said previously, as soon as you create that work, as soon as you put that work on a piece of paper or on a computer file, on a canvas, on something tangible, that means it's yours. So it has to be something that's out of your mind, meaning you just can't have these thoughts and then someone else the next day you see it on the internet and you're like, well, I thought of that. It was in my head. It actually has to be put on something hard like paper or a file. So I'm just going to break it down a little bit so we understand a little bit more about the different types of copyrights. So artistic works seems pretty straightforward. So paintings, photographies, and sculptures. I would keep track of all of your art as well. In a file somewhere. It can be a hard copy, it can be a copy on the computer, just keeping a consistent file of what is yours so you can show you know, maybe your growth as an artist. I'm sure most people that are artists, when they start, maybe their art looks very different after 20 years. So it just shows your evolution in an artist too. Literary works, which books, brochures, flyers, computer software, programs. Musical work, it can be sheet music too. It doesn't necessarily have to be music that's sung. It can be beats, maybe you're doing rhythms, whatever that may be. And then dramatic work, so films, plays, and scripts. So why is this important for your business? And of course, the monetary licensing your art, you can create revenue. So that means, say if right now we have the curling championships here. Possibly, maybe you are licensed to create art for them. You can make money off of that. Cultural value as well. It helps you maintain control over your art so that, for instance, say I've used this example before, say if you are hired to paint a mural on a building, possibly you could have some rules around that. So say if someone there's graffiti on your art, the people that have hired you, the building that it's on, have signed a contract with you knowing that they have to correct that or pay for you to come and fix that. If they move out of that building and someone that isn't aligned with your morals or your rights or your beliefs or your visions, whatever it may be, that they have to pay for that that mural of yours to be taken off. Because sometimes things, if it's not clearly, you know, it can be used in ways you don't want it to be used. Also, maybe you don't want your art on a coffee mug. Maybe you only want it on, you know, a canvas. You don't want your art printed on a t-shirt or boxer shorts, whatever it may be. This is a way to keep the integrity of your art. So, and you don't have to, you own it right away. So you do not have to register it in order to create these rules or guidelines in a contract. It's your art right away. You can put these these ideas into a contract. And then maintaining your honor as well, like misuse, misinappropriation of your work. So you want to be very clear of how that business or that person or the organization is using your art. So a lot of times people ask me, well, when is a good time to register your art? Because like I said, the second you put that art on the piece of paper, it's yours, it's copywritten, it's already protected. But there's another step is that you can go ahead and register it. And what that does is it creates an actual file. So if someone comes to you and says, you are infringing on my art, we can go look into the 𝗪𝗵𝘁, their web and see when it was registered, the date, who owns it, all the details. So that's easier to prove. If you don't do it that direction, then it would be where you would have to show, you know, your files of this is, you know, when I had the idea, this is me sketching it on a piece of paper, this is me putting it to the canvas. You have to show something like that. So sometimes it's easier to register your art if you think that it's going to be distributed in a wide way. So say if you got hired to produce some art for the NHL or the Olympics, you would definitely want to register your art because it's being seen by a huge audience, and that it might be tempting for people to steal your idea or use your idea or copy your art. So stuff like that, you would really consider registering your art. And like this is the bottom point there that I started off with. It just makes it easier for you to prove your ownership in court when it's registered. So like that's like I would suggest that registering pieces that are going to be seen at a very wide audience. And so just for your information too, like I said, you do not have to register your art for it to be copywritten. So it's copywritten right away as soon as you make your art. So step 2, it's you put the letter C, put a circle on it, comma, your full name, and then comma year. So if I created a piece of art, I would write C, comma, and this could be on the back of the canvas. It could be on your web site, like maybe you're selling through an e-commerce site or Etsy or Facebook, you would put all of my art as copyright. You would write it maybe in your tag on your Instagram. You would put it, and I encourage you now after this webinar to go look at some of your artists that you follow online, and you can see, you'll be able to figure out, you'll see right away where their copyright are. And it's interesting because maybe it just wasn't noticed before, but now you'll see it. So you can put that anywhere on your art. You don't have to put it right on the front of it. It just has to be somewhere around it. So again, step 3 is deciding whether or not you want to register it or not. Step 4, you want to use contracts. So contracts, you can Google ideas, and NADF might be able to help you. I would be able to help you with something like that. And it's just using common words or things that make sense to you. You don't want to make it too strict because this is a business negotiation, but you do want to put some things that are concerning to you. Maybe it's a period of time they can use your art and that's it, you know, whatever it may be. And I'm sure it will change to every different organization or business that you sell to. And this isn't a large scale. If you're just selling through a Facebook, you're not using contracts for your commission work. They're just buying 1 or 2 products for themselves personally. So there's no contracts. And then it's up to you, just like patents and all the other IP. It's up to you to monetize how you know, if anyone is stealing your art or you see anything. And I know this came up in some of the international overseas big like Temu, I believe, and there's some other ones that produce a lot of clothing, and they tend to steal a lot of stuff off of artists. So they'll look at what's trending, what's cool on Instagram, and they'll just copy and paste and put the art. And so they've been in a lot of trouble. And so, but it's up to you to actually point that out and to start writing the letters. And yeah, that's like number 6, writing the cease and desist letters. You know, and sometimes I've helped clients write letters like that too. And usually most people will stop because I feel like most people have just didn't know that there's some art out there that's very similar. I would like to think that that's the case, but there are some bad characters out there that intentionally take your ideas for their profit. And I wanted to put this slide in because I found that this was a question that I get quite frequently, and it is, who owns the art when you're hired? And so it can go either way. If you work for an organization, so say, let's pretend I work for NADF, and I'm an artist. I am a canvas, oil, and paint artist, and NADF knows that, but I was hired to be a business advisor. And NADF wants to come out with a new marketing material. And so they know that I'm really good at it. So they approach me and they say, hey, Carole, can you write or can you create a new logo and a new graphics for us? So because it's not my job, like I'm hired as a business advisor, I'm not a graphic designer, and they know that I'm an artist, so then maybe I would do a contract outside of my normal day-to-day work. But if I was hired as a graphic designer or a marketer for NADF and they said, hey, Carole, come up with a new logo, that's theirs, that's NADF, because it's part of my job description. So you just want to be very clear when you're creating your art for other businesses and when you're working for other business. So when you're being paid a salary or a wage, an hourly wage, and it's part of your job is marketing or maybe the graphic design or maybe it's coming up with plays, whatever it is, that is covered. That's not your art anymore. You are basically creating that art for your job. And so just being really careful about that. So if that's not the case, if you get hired, so someone just contacts you and says, we're doing this event, we want you to create a logo for us, really specify in the contract how they can use that logo. Do they get to put it on their Facebook? Do they get to put it on their website? Do they get to print whatever they want out of it? Do they get to use it for 10 years? You know, like what is the rights of it? And then it's up to you to make sure that they are actually fulfilling what you guys have agreed on in the contract as well. Okay, we're moving on to industrial design. So industrial design is the shape, the look and the shape of your product. So it's just the aesthetic features. It has nothing to do with the functionality of a product. It's just the look of a product. And it has to be filed within a year that the public sees it. So that's pretty, you know, that's a lot more than say patents. But so you're out in the public, you're selling it, and you realize that everyone's really attracted to your product because of the shape or the look of it. You might want to go into industrial design. It's 5 years, but it can be renewed for another 10 years, making it a 15-year. And most people, if you are continuing, your design has not changed, you will most likely get that extra 10 years. It is $2,500. This is with the lawyer filing for you. So without the lawyer, it's around, it's just under $1,000, I believe. But it's a little bit more technical. The government is trying to make it easier for people to be able to file it for themselves in terms of being able to just take a picture of your product. Before they would want specific drawings and dimensions in order to prove the shapes and the look of your product. So hopefully that will change and make it a lot easier for people, because $2,500 is quite a lot too. So it could also be the packaging, not just the shape. So I think of things like if you buy an Apple iPhone or even their laptop, their packaging is very distinguishable. So that makes it that could be something that they have under industrial design IP as well for protection. So your shape has to be recognized, almost like, oops, sorry, I skipped here, that's okay. Your shape has to be recognized in the market, almost like copyright. It has to be distinctful enough. So these are some products. So Crocs, shoes have been around forever, right? So they couldn't go and get a shoe patent because it would be pretty hard to argue that the function of the shoe has changed dramatically. It has not. It's just the look of the shoe. So that's why Crocs went with the industrial design on theirs. Now the phone in the middle, so this is a phone, and it is a bunch of parts put together to create a shape. So if you look at Samsung's or Apple's, you can tell the difference of what phone is what. I also like thinking of trucks. Headlights are something that car manufacturers will usually get an industrial design over because they have different shapes, and that's very telling. I grew up in a small town. I know that when I was driving, you could tell who's coming towards me just by the shape of their headlights. So that's just a way of thinking about industrial design. And then as packaging, if you notice on the Coca-Cola has many different IP to protect their beverages. So shape is definitely one of their IPs because of the shape of the bottle. Even, you know, the everything about it, it's very distinctful. You would be able to say that that's a Coca-Cola bottle when it sits next to I don't know, like an iced tea bottle. So I just want to point out, since these two tend to get confused a little bit, and it is confusing. So patents and industrial design are very uh, similar but different. So how I say to look at them differently is patents are something that you need to protect the actual function of that product. Like, how does it work? And the industrial design is the look. So if we think about the Crocs again as an example, it could never be patent because the function of a shoe has been patent already. Once something has been patent and it expires at 20 years, you can no longer go and repatent something. It's done. It's already been exposed. It's public. It's no longer able to be patent. But say if you change it so much that I can, like, maybe you put the shoe has, it walks for you. I don't know. I can't think about anything because, it's an invention. It's pretty hard. But if it changes, then yes, maybe you might be able to go into patents. But with industrial design, it's about the look. It only protects the visual features of a product. So if you were to say my visual features have functionality, that wouldn't work. So it's just the looks of it at all. That's it. That's the only thing. And why are industrial designs important for your business? I think industrial designs are a great way to protect your business, especially when you look at the cost of a patent. So a patent, can run you $30,000 by the time you're done with it. Industrial design could be at max, if you're going through an agent, like $1,500 to $2,000 if you're going through a lawyer. So the cost difference is huge. It's only 15 years for your industrial design. However, it is really a way to protect if you're innovative and you're creating new designs on things. There was a company that had a bunch of tents, and they were in shapes of animals. So a big bear, like it was a big circle bear. It was, moose. It was all of these woodland type animals. So they couldn't patent it because tents are been around forever. Even if they change the tent poles, the function of the tent is still the same. So they had to go and get an industrial design in order to protect their design, so that someone like Coleman, who makes a lot of tent, doesn't look at that and say, oh, I'm going to start an animal line now. So yes, of course, you generate revenue, you generate money through selling your designs or licensing. So maybe you're approaching Apple or maybe a car manufacturer, and you say, I have a really slick new design here, and do you want to buy it from me? So this is one that I want to add in as well, because I find trade secrets is very important IP. I didn't mention in the breakdown on our second slide there, but this is a way that if you can keep your idea a secret, usually is recipes, processes of how you do something, even maybe the way you're beating, you get to do it faster, quicker than someone else, but you're keeping a secret so no one else can copy that. Usually recipes have a lot to do with trade secrets, because if I was to patent the Coca-Cola formula, that means that it gets exposed, the entire world gets to see it, and you wouldn't want that. So they keep it a secret, and in order to keep it a secret, you have to think of a way to keep it a secret, meaning it's the recipe is held in a lock, it's in a safe, there's only 2 people with the combination. All of our employees sign a confidentiality, they promise not to share any of the trade secrets. So those are ways that you can protect yourself, and it's good practice because say if you are a marketing company and you have you've been marketing for 20 years, you have a big client list, and you're ready to sell your business. So what's value? It's going to be your customer list. That's the value, because marketing, that's just a computer, some materials. It's not a really high cost. There's not a lot of value in it. Maybe you have a brand, but anyways, what would be value is your customer list. So if you have a list of your customers and you can prove to me that none of your employees had the capability of stealing that list or taking that list or the list being leaked, that has value for you. So even if you have an art business and you have a list of contracts that you do with other community members where they're bulk buying, that is a huge like asset that is very high value for people because they know they're buying your business with a certain amount of guarantee of revenue. So these are just some of the ways that you protect your trade secrets. So obviously it's got to be a secret. You cannot be selling the recipe on Christmas or letting people know or showing, giving public tours of your beading workshop so they get to see how you're quickly beading things, whatever it may be. And then it's all reasonable in the sense of you keep reasonable steps to keep it a secret. If you have your recipe handwritten on a piece of paper and it's on your kitchen table and it's not being protected, that's not you wouldn't be qualified for a trade secret at all. It's been too exposed, it had too many risks. And the greatest thing about trade secret, it can be forever, meaning that if I have a very good recipe that I'm selling, okay, I own KFC. That's my recipe. And, after I died, someone in the office obviously will have that all sorted out, gets to take over the company, takes over the recipe, and it continues on until no one else is eating KFC. No one cares about the recipe anymore. So that's why I think it's a value. I've had some of my companies with more technical businesses use trade secrets, but then also use an industrial design. So they're protecting the look, but they don't want to patent the functionality because then they would have to expose it, then people can steal it. So they just use the functionality of their product as a trade secret, and they use industrial design to protect the actual product look. So before you spend any money on IP, on intellectual property, you should do some research for sure. Hopefully NADF will send out this PowerPoint or whatnot, so you can click on these links directly. If not, you can just Google Canadian trademark. So if you're looking at trademarks, if you think that you have a really cool trademark that you want to look into, you can search that. The global brand database actually will search the whole world. And so it's interesting to see if you're copying anything in that. You can upload your art into that database and they can do a search for you to see if there's similar art. And it's good to say not only to see about your next piece of art, but it's also good to see if anyone is copying your art. So if anyone is trademarked it or whatever it may be, you'll be able to look at it through that. Google Patents is you can just on your Google browser, it sounds funny to say, but you will Google Patents, and Upcom will be a search engine that just searches patents. So if you're interested to see if your idea is something that's already been patented, I suggest looking through there. Canadian Intellectual Property Office, they list all of the IP that we were talking about on their site. So you can go to trademark, copyright, industrial design, and trade secrets all through that website. And then, sometimes we do our commerce, a lot of business in the United States, unfortunately. So it's good to look to see what is patent there, because if you are going to sell into the States, that's something that you would have to also invest in as well. And having said that, not everyone even decides to use IP. There's a method that people feel that it's first to market, especially if your product is something very novel, like a fidget spinner or something like that. You're probably just going to produce as many as possible and get it out and get sales. You're first to market, meaning people value you as the leading brand for that fidget, and you're not spending a lot of money on patents. So you really want to try Amazon or just Googling your idea too, because maybe someone decided not to patent the idea, but they're selling it. And if that's the case, you cannot patent something that's already been exposed to the public. So that's it for me. I believe we're going to some questions. I'm going to stop sharing here. If anyone has any questions, there are some chat here. Very informative. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Kimberly. I'm just curious, did anyone understand before this webinar that they were different IPs other than just patent, or was everyone using patent to think of even copyright and trademark? Because I find that that is the case in our region, is that patent is sometimes the word used for all intellectual property. Yeah, okay. So hopefully, if anything, like that's great to understand the different ways of protecting your idea or product or service. There, I would suggest maybe even Googling some of them to see the difference between a copyright. Perfect. That's good. It's good to know that you actually knew more. That's good. Good to hear that, Jason. 𝗪𝗵𝗁𝗁, yes, Sherry, thank you. Yeah, I find this very fascinating. And it's a weird balance, because you have to make these decisions before you get too far ahead in your business, other than copyright, because copyright, as soon as you create that art, it's protected. But the other ones, you really have to think, what's the future of your business in 10 years? Do you plan to sell it? Do you plan to start to license it? Do you plan for someone to take you over completely? What is it? And that will hopefully help your decision making in IP, because IP is very expensive and it's not guaranteed that you will be protected. So but one of my clients, he sells to a large US recognized or organization, and so he goes through the patent process because he knows eventually he probably will be absorbed by this company. And if anyone is infringing, even before he's absorbed by that larger US company, the US company can go back and sue those people that were infringing. So that's a way of him playing this game of, don't copy me right now, because in a few years I'm going to be bought out by this huge company that will have enough money to sue you for using my idea. So there's different thought processes in what IP is best for you. So I definitely suggest looking into it. Shoot me an email if anyone wants to have a further conversation. I'm up for that. But yeah, thank you very much for coming out today and watching it. I know sometimes webinars can get tiring after a while, but I appreciate that. And then are we going to go into the spin wheel now? I feel there's not any more questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, Carole, for the wonderful speech. Thank you so much. That was a good presentation.
Thank you.
So we're gonna do this spin wheel. We have 4 people here. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Can you see that?
Yes. Ooh.
Here we go. We have Jason winner. Jason will contact you on your provided email. And thank you so much.
That's great. Congratulations, Jason. I like all your emojis. Okay, I'm okay to end this a little early. We have a few minutes left, but yeah, I'm sure no point of sitting around if no one has any more questions to just sit around in quiet, empty space. But enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully, wherever you are, it's not as cold as it is here in Thunder Bay. But take care, and I look forward to talking with NADF and their clients again someday. Take care, everyone. Bye.